in a major escalation after the IDF accused Iran of breaking a fragile ceasefire negotiated by Donald Trump only last night.
Intelligence sources now confirming that Israeli warplanes are flying currently over southwestern Syria, heading, we're told, in the direction of Iran and towards the Iranian capital, Tehran, as instructed by the Israeli Defense Minister, Israel Katz. The IDF and the Israeli Air Force instructed to carry out significant strikes against regime targets in Tehran. It seems that is what we may be witnessing now with these reports confirmed by intelligence sources that Israeli warplanes are currently flying over southwestern Syria en route to Iran.
It won't take them long to get there.
I'm not sure what the flight time will be, but it's certainly a lot longer than a ballistic missile, which, as you say, is 12 minutes.
And do we know, Mark, how many planes are involved in this mission?
We don't. That kind of detail we don't have, and obviously for security reasons, the exact sort of timing and arrival is something that's not been
massive escalation, completely at odds with what Trump's been saying, what Starmer's been saying.
Well, Iran has already said this morning after the ballistic missile strike, which they are denying, that if Israel responds, they will respond very significantly to Israel. So, yeah, we could, as I say, be in this very worrying downward spiral again.
The war is back on.
Well, you see, the thing is, if Trump has annihilated Iran's so-called kind of nuclear capability, what excuse have Israel got to carry on bombing them back now?
Well, it's very interesting. The sort of targets that Israel has gone after in the last day, 2 days, have sort of changed from the nuclear complexes. They've still been going for the surface-to-surface missiles and other military, but they've changed in going after regime targets. So that prison, the Evin prison, where Nazanin Zaghari Ratcliffe was one of the political prisoners who was there for a time. Hundreds of political prisoners there. They blew the front entrance off that prison, and a lot of other regime targets that are linked to the sort of internal security apparatus, those individual sort of military and policing divisions that are all about kind of suppressing the sort of the population that would rise up in Iran.
So this is about fomenting regime change.
Well, I think there's no doubt. Whatever Israel might have said in the early stages of this, it would like to see
off, so the prisoners can escape, and a lot of them would be political prisoners.
Well, I think you've got to draw that conclusion from the sort of targets that they've been going after just laterally.
Iran apparently launched a ballistic missile at Israel. Sirens sounded across the north of the country, said the IDF, in anticipation of further attacks. The Defence Force said Israelis had been running to shelter for the third time in an hour for cover, fearing Iranian missiles would strike at the Jewish state. The Chief of the General Staff said, in light of the severe violation of the ceasefire carried out by the Iranian regime, we will respond with force. Professor Scott Lucas says there could be confusion around when the missiles were fired.
It's barely lasted 3 hours. Does he throw his toys out of the pram, or does he get back to the negotiating table and try to persuade them again to lay down arms?
Well, to follow on what Mark said, I think timing's very important here. The ceasefire was supposed to come into effect 9 a.m. Tehran time, 8:30 in Tel Aviv, 6:30 here. That was when the Netanyahu government finally said it would accept the ceasefire. They waited several hours, not only after Trump's announcements, but after Iran said it would accept. If you look at the Israel Defense Forces statement about the 2 Iranian ballistic missiles that were launched onto northern Israel, the timing is those 2 missiles were launched from Iran before the Netanyahu government's announcement. But I suspect they landed or they were intercepted over northern Israel after the Netanyahu announcement was made. Now, that means, and the Iranians are saying this, and I'm not defending Iran in any way, I'm not a big fan of the regime, but the Iranians are saying, look, we did not fire after the ceasefire was supposed to take effect. Now, the Israel Defense Minister Israel Katz had gone ahead and said in the meantime, and Mark referred to this, there are going to be these intense strikes on Tehran. What we're watching for is whether those strikes actually take place. So far, there's no indication that the Israeli Defense Force is immobilized, and there's been silence from the Netanyahu government after that. So I think at this point, we can't say that the ceasefire is broken, but we're in a wait-and-see position. What I would say beyond that is that Trump being Trump, the issue last night is he was a bit premature in declaring a ceasefire, and he was very premature in declaring that Iran's nuclear facilities have been totally obliterated. They haven't. Iran still has quite a lot of those nuclear facilities. Experts have analyzed the damage from Saturday's U.S. strikes, and they've noted that the U.S. did not touch one of Iran's main facilities at Natanz. So even if the ceasefire holds, we'll still have this question about this Iranian nuclear program, which could recover within about 5 months.
I hear what you say about when the missile was launched, but I'm just looking, it's 1,500 miles, isn't it, I think, between Israel and Iran,
Yep.
Scott. I was reading it could take as little as 12 minutes for a ballistic missile to go from Iran to Israel. So are we really suggesting that that was sent before the deadline?
That's the Israel Defense Force's timing. And I matched it up against the timing of the Netanyahu statement.
Okay.
Actually maps out to that. And again, those are probably the fastest Iranian ballistic missiles that could be sent across, but we don't know which missiles they used. So the missiles could have taken longer than 12 minutes to reach across. So in no way, this is not to defend Iran. This is not to defend Israel. This is to just identify one of those moments that occurs that makes ceasefire fragile. In that just before you get confirmation it's going to occur, each side is launching attacks up to the last minute. Indeed, the Iranians are saying the Israelis were doing the same thing this morning, launching attacks until that Netanyahu announcement. And even after the Netanyahu announcement was made, there were strikes on Tehran.
Israel struck military targets across Iran yesterday. Donald Trump, having negotiated the ceasefire, declared the end to hostilities, dubbing it the 12-day war. But today's events make it seem the war is back on. Iran has strongly denied that it launched the missiles.
ستاده‌کار نیروهای مسلح شلیک هر گونه موشک در ساعات اخیر از ایران به سمت سرزمین‌های اشغالی را تکذیب کرد.
آگاهی ملت بزرگ و قهرمان ایران اسلامی میرساند که نیروهای مسلح جمهوری اسلامی ایران بدون کمترین اعتماد به سخنان دشمنان و دست به ماشه آماده پاسخ قاطع و پشیمان کننده به هر عمل تجاوزکارانه دشمن خواهند بود.
بینندگان عزیز توجه فرمایید، عملیات موفق موشکی سپاه در پاسخ به تجاوز آمریکا و ایستادگی و همبستگی مثال زدنی مردم عزیزمان در دفاع از سرزمین آتش بس را به دشمن تحمیل کرد.
And locals in Tehran said they do not want the war.
بله من موافقم، باید این زودتر از اینا هم انجام میشه، چون هزینه‌شو دارن مردم میدن، فرقی میکنه چه مردم ما چه مردم اونا، هزینه‌شو دارن دو طرف میدن، بهتره که زودتر این اتفاق بیفته. دیگه باید چیزایی که لازمه بابت این آتش بس رو ازشون بگیرن دیگه، یه سری الزامات اونا هم باید رعایت بکنن که این اتفاق بیفته.
من موافقم، دلیلش هم به خاطر اینکه 12 شب نخوابیدم. بعد دیگه بعد 12 روز امروز در اومدم بیرون، دیدم آتش بس، گفتم پیاده روی و اینا. بعد اینکه آرامش باشه چرا مخالف باشه.
But Westerners in Israel have decided it's time to get out. The French are evacuating their nationals too.